What up, y'all? We are here for our weekly energy oracle forecast, where we are taking a look at the week ahead to see what kind of energy and spiritual weather we will be living in. First up, we've got Embrace. If my memory serves me right, I think this came out in my own personal reading that I did today for the week. And I think that like the rest of my personal reading had so many cards that repeated the words from that same column or the same theme over and over again. And it was very clear that everything that is happening right now, God's got an eye on it. God's got his hand in the mix, and the darkness is being exposed to bring the resurrection of the second coming of the Christ, right? At least a rebirth in our consciousness. And you can already see it happening. And what I think is most profound and really exciting to see, like taking like a step back and watching the bigger picture here, was when Bishop Budd, gave the sermon that she did and caused such an uproar. It was the atheists, the agnostics, and the pagans that were speaking out the loudest that I noticed on social media, thanking her for her sermon and acknowledging that level of spiritual leadership, but also they were fighting for the virtue and the integrity of Jesus, the Christ, the original Jesus, And so I thought that was very exciting. But I think that right now, even though we may not love what's happening, and it's not to say that things are okay. We still need to do our job and go after the wounds and the sickness in the world that needs attention and care, right? We need to be coming together to find solutions and healing modalities for our people and our animals and our plants and our atmosphere and our oceans and all of it, right? And so when we have an uprising or an awakening, a revolution, a renaissance, anything that advances the human consciousness and the human heart and the human spirit and the human condition, right? Anytime we excel into an improved state of living, it's because we have been disrupted from our comfort and our complacency. So there's usually a disturbance and something that onsets to show in society what is fragmented, what needs repair, what is festering, what is toxic, what is poisonous, what's dangerous. All of these things, they need to come out into the open. And I mean, if you look at the past decade, all of the social issues, one at a time, have been put in the spotlight so that we can see everything that needs to be shifted and evolved and healed. So I am one of the people that feels the fear and the outrage right now, but at the same time, as a spiritual mystic and a spiritual student, I know that major change, and we can't enter a new era of humanity unless we go through something that shakes us to our core. And so here we are, everything is kind of coming to a head. And so there's this idea that I remember learning, many, many years ago, and I can't remember what particular wise person said this. It may have been in one of the Eckhart Tolle books, either The Power of Now or A New Earth. But he was pointing out that and this might come from even like further back, but he was pointing out that like pain is inevitable. And I think many of the mystics have pointed this idea out over time, but pain is inevitable, but suffering can be a choice. And so when we fight, this was the concept that Eckhart Tolle was talking about, that when we fight the reality that we're in and we don't accept it and we just rake ourselves over the injustice and the outrage and we keep resisting, instead of coming to a state of acceptance, we torment ourselves and we waste energy against something that we can't do anything about. We can't change it by doing that. And so what we have to do first step is just accept the reality of the situation. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love, but you can accept the reality of the situation. Now, here's an example. About 10 years ago, I think it was around, 10 years ago this year, my best friend at the time was suddenly killed in a tragic accident. And there was some mystery around how the accident unfolded. It was at a car accident. It was late at night, and people weren't sure whether he was in the vehicle or had taken the bus home and was hit walking home from the bus stop by the vehicle. There had been drinking involved, and there just was a lot of unanswered questions and a lot of like the case kind of fell quiet. And the family, his family was very distraught, and they just couldn't relax. They wanted to know every detail about the accident. Who was at fault? Who's to blame? All of the details. They wanted to know all of this stuff. They wanted justice. They wanted satisfaction. They wanted, to be vindicated. And I saw that was increasing their suffering. And from my perspective, the guy who was driving the Jeep, his life will never be the same. And the punishment that he will do to himself is bad enough on its own. And it wasn't like on purpose, right? So why ruin 2 lives in the process? But there was another aspect that really took hold of me, and that was this profound helplessness in the magnitude of the situation. It was something so non-negotiable, so final. There was nothing I could do. My best friend was gone. And physically, I would never get to be in his presence again. And I learned radical acceptance in that moment. And I think that alleviated a significant amount of the pain that I was already in. And it was like this feeling of relief, like you put down a fight, a battle that you knew you were never going to win. And so when you talk about radical acceptance, it's important that we distinguish that you're not radically condoning or saying, okay, I accept this, I agree with it now. But if you understand that if it's raining outside and you can't change the fact that it's raining outside, all you can do is take a rain jacket and your umbrella and you make your plans accordingly. So we can't put our lives on hold waiting for the perfect conditions to live in. There's only going to be more challenges on earth. Things are turning up. The intensity is turning up everywhere. Environmental threats and health scares and crisis and financial fragility and everything. I mean, even just our electrical grid, the whole system that we live on is so fragile, right? What happens if the electrical grid goes down? Everybody's dependent on apps, right? I am very reluctant on becoming super dependent on these apps, right, that keep you organized, to tell you how to schedule your this and that, and this app is for this and this app is for that. And it's like, people don't realize that they're giving away their cognitive reasoning, right? When you don't use your brain and you don't use your critical thinking skills, they go away. And we're getting to the point where we're so dependent on AI to tell us where to do, what to do, where to go, when to turn. I know I depend on maps. Like, I can get around my own town, but I can't like read a physical like paper map. I mean, I can if I'm like sitting calmly in a room, but if somebody like hands me a map in the car and they're like, find an alternate route for us, like, I'm like, meltdown point. Like, I can't look at all these lines, and like, it's just like, that's not my neurology, right? So, we are in the times that we are in. We can't put our lives on hold. There's going to be a new crisis every day. We can't stop having joy. I can't, like, I have to realize, as a person who makes videos on a daily basis, I can't be in a solemn mood every single day, because there's things going on in the world every single day that are tragic and horrific. And so, we have to be able to take those moments to be able to connect with our joy and our peace and, all the goodness too, and learn about good news and good things. So we still have to embrace life. One thing that will make that more imaginable is to accept where we're at in this moment. Whether you've been affected by a recent natural disaster, or, you're on one side or the other of the political conditions right now, the political weather we're in. If you're in, financial difficulty, or, you have a health thing, whatever it is, it's like, there's so much going on that we can't wait for life to be perfect, to be happy, and to follow our dreams, and to get up and go, We still have to carry on, and we still have to keep living, and we can't let the joy die, right? We can't let the brightness and the color dwindle away into that stark, gray, totalitarian dystopia that the movies always depict, everybody wearing the same ugly, angular tunic, the gray tunics, and we've got to keep the joy alive. We've got to keep the happiness. So we look for the silver linings, and we look for the opportunities, and we look for the fact that when life and the status quo is disrupted, that's usually an opportunity for growth and expansion. There's opportunities present when things are in flux and changing. Even though sometimes we don't like the changes that are happening, they can shift things in such a way that it opens another door, right? So for now, accept the moment that we're in. This is the time that we are living in. So this is the time that you have to do your work in the world, to fulfill your purpose, to follow your dreams, to live your life. So we embrace this opportunity that we have, this brief moment on earth, and we can't waste our time here. So we embrace opportunities for evolution and change. What do we have? Expanding. This is going to be expanding humanity. And what happens when humanity is challenged and we get through the initial emotional reactivity? We come together. We come together and we put our minds together, and we find ways to invent and innovate and heal and grow and find ways to prosper, right? So again, this is when you see in nature the pressure and the heat and the disruption and the unpleasantness, that's usually what causes evolution in a species. So I think that if we can be in the consciousness of embracing the moment, that is coming from that certainty in the Creator. That even if the enemy or the opponent sets us up in some sort of plot to ruin us, if we hold on to the certainty in the Creator, that the Creator is present in all things, that the Creator has our back, that the Creator has a plan, and that we will not be forsaken, then it's like the Creator power gets activated within that situation. And then it's like the oppressor is hoisted by their own petard, so to speak. So expanding, but look at this image, right? It feels like we're being torn in two. You know, expansion is not always a pretty sight. Look at think of the image of a vagina expanding to give birth. Not a lovely sight to behold. It's like sci-fi, right? So again, it's easy to want to lose hope and feel despondent and feel scared and frozen and disappointed, but that's not, like, we can't be in that state of reactivity. We have to choose to be in affinity with the light and share that Creator consciousness and share that cause consciousness, right? So when we're having cause consciousness, so like say we're in effect consciousness, we're having a bad day, we're getting dysregulated, we've watched too much news, we've seen too much bad news, we're feeling hopeless, we're feeling futile, we're feeling like helpless, like what's the point? And so then, you know, we let slide our routines, and we're doom scrolling, and we're feeling terrible, and we're feeling tired because we didn't work out. We're not feeling excited and proud because we didn't work on our dreams and our goals, right? Whereas, you know, if you can feel the reality of what's happening, but decide within yourself to regulate, to do a meditation, do some breathing exercises, to get out, go for a walk, do whatever you can. You know, pray. I like to pray. Makes me feel a lot better. Do some prayer, and then get back into your routine. Get back into the projects that light you up, that make you feel like you're living in your purpose, right? And that you have a sense of purpose and direction. It's when we overcome these fears and push past the challenges and the blocks that we really gain that momentum, and that we get that extra little push from spirit. We have the heart chakra. This is bringing humanity together, or we will be being brought together. I have a feeling that the alien visitors are going to bring humanity together. Now, people have talked about different alien species for a while now. And there's theories on, you know, one or two of the races that might be questionable or hostile. But for the most part, when you look at the light workers talking about the different star seeds and those collections of extraterrestrials, they're actually more benevolent. And I have a feeling that they might be here for a mixture of reasons, but maybe one is I would like to think that they might be here to help intervene in our global crises. If not, I don't know. I hope they're not here for anything bad. But I feel that having them gather around is going to bring us together as a human species. Something is going to bring us all together in a way. And I think that even too, it might be just so many people waking up right now, so many people having this heart opening and this heart expanding, that eventually when there is when there's a majority, like if you've heard of the 100th monkey experiment, where they would train they'd get these troops of monkeys together, and they would train a couple of them in a skill. And the other monkeys didn't know how to do that skill. But when they trained up to 100 monkeys out of this big grouping of monkeys to do the same skill, once the 100th monkey knew how to do it, it's like all the collective consciousnesses of the monkeys were activated and they all knew the skill. So I believe that this is the same with human consciousness and human awakening and evolution, right? It weaves its way into the zeitgeist, for one thing. But I think that when enough of us are starting to become enlightened and awakened, and our hearts are open and we're starting to perceive differently and feel differently, I think that eventually once we hit a majority or a certain mass number, I think that's going to shift the global consciousness in such a way that other people will accelerate very quickly along with us. So I think there's a collective opening and awakening of the heart. All right, what is, worship. So again, and you know what, who's associated with the heart? Jesus. And we ask Jesus into our heart, not because we want him to come in to somewhere he's not been before, but the Christ dwells within our heart. The universal energy of Christ consciousness is associated with our heart chakra. And so we're connecting to Jesus, the prophet, as well as the universal Christ consciousness within. But when we ask Jesus into our heart, that activates that influence of the universal cosmic Christ consciousness to come over us, and it changes our hearts. It expands our hearts, and it's supposed to do its work on us to create compassion and forgiveness and love, right? It's not, that's the thing, is modern Christianity, they leave all that out. They're just like, oh, it's a one and done deal. I got Jesus in my heart, got baptized, and I go to church. But where is the discipleship? Where is the discipline? Where is that picking up of the cross and sacrificing yourself, your lower self, and resurrecting that higher self, right? That self that's more like the Christ, sharing affinity with God. So this is a time where the power of God will be revealed in many ways on earth. And I think that I've been watching in awe in some ways recently, just seeing for me, I can't tell you how impactful that was, seeing all of these atheists and agnostics and pagans speaking out like that. And that means so much to me, because I feel like they are my people, they're my audience. To me, that's who I feel like I'm called to be there for. All the people who had this trauma within the church, and I don't want them to walk away from their beliefs and their faith, and I don't want them to throw the baby out with the bathwater. I do understand that they stopped believing in the church, but I don't think that those people really stopped believing in God, and they didn't stop believing in Jesus, because all of them will say again and again, I like Jesus, I don't like Christians. And they're all they're all so mad at God. You can't be mad at something that doesn't exist, right? What would be the point, you know? So I feel that this is an awakening of many people and of many souls. And I feel like there's much to be grateful for in that way. And there's also this tool of protection, where if you are declaring out loud to yourself, if you're by yourself, if you can tell someone else, if you can tell another person, if you can talk in a group about how great God is, and you say that, you talk about the greatness and the goodness of the Creator, then that literally puts you in this bubble of protection, and it puts you in the way of blessings and in flow. So right now, to get through anxiety, to find certainty, you can pray, ask the Creator, please help me embrace even this darkness and difficulty in this moment and all of this uncertainty on earth. I know that you're doing this to reveal your light in the world. I know that you're doing this to change the hearts of mankind and bring us into this new era, into this new age, right? I think that's what I was starting to talk about earlier. It's like we're in the end of an age and we're moving into this new age, but we're not just gonna suddenly like be these new people. Like, okay, now Pisces is over, age of Pisces is over, now we're in the age of Aquarius, and now we act different. It's like it takes a process. It takes a collective journey and process that we're doing. Like we are all doing our own individually, but there's now like this group homework basically happening. So fortify yourself by creating daily prayer rituals for yourself. I like to have my morning prayer rituals start me off right, and then I like to pray just like ongoing throughout the day, but like definitely have like maybe a midday check-in. I take my prayers on my jogs. I take my prayers on my runs. I take them and I pray in different ways, right? Sometimes I have certain, organized prayers that I do like mitzvahs, and sometimes I'm just, freestyling. And then sometimes, my prayers are like visual and things that I'm thinking about in my mind, but then other times I'm saying them out loud. It's very powerful to use your speaking words, to use your mouth to say your prayers, right? Because that is sharing that power of creation with God as well. So prayer and declaring God's goodness, and then declaring, thinking about all the things that fill you up with gladness and appreciation and goodness and gratitude, and just reaffirming that. Somebody recently asked if I knew any binding spells or protection spells. And I don't really do spell work too much. Like I do ritual things and I pray, and I guess maybe I do some spelly things, but I don't like to get into the practice of forcing my will or taking something from the universe that wasn't meant for me. Because what happens when you force, like if you do a spell for money, for instance, and you get this extra money, but maybe you weren't meant to get that money. That extra money that you kind of took forcibly is like using a cosmic credit card that you have to pay back, and you have to pay back with interest. So it's going to cost you something. You're going to lose something, you're going to break something. There's going to be some kind of upheaval, unrest, or that money is just going to come right back out of your pocket again. So particularly and that's just in things that you don't think are affecting anyone else. Now you've got people out there that want to do love spells and do curses and do all kinds of spells that affect people's free will, right? So everything that you're putting out into the universe, everything that you're trying to take for yourself, you're paying for one way or the other. It costs. And everything that you are putting out on other people is going to come back on you big time. Like times 3, they say, but I feel like it's more sometime for sure. So you really have to watch that stuff. So I learned that what is the most powerful and fulfilling way to live, what really works for you, is to do the healing work. Do your, if you're doing, incorporating herbs and candles and crystals and things like that, do those in a way that focuses on your own healing and your own soul correction, and make yourself more like the light of the Creator, whilst aligning yourself with the will of the Creator and enhancing your virtue at the same time. So that's more like white magic, whereas I just really don't like to do spells that force my will, because I don't have the big picture. I don't have the whole plan. I'd rather be in alignment with the will of God, because usually when I am, that's usually the most fulfilling. But it took having to learn to trust that God wasn't like a total drag and like ruining all my happiness. Like, it's actually, you'll have a better life that way, better experience. So protection tips though that I feel are very helpful. So I used to see angels and demons both when I was little, and I used to be kind of like harassed by entities and things in different ways for a very long time, like up into my adulthood. And it wasn't, and I lived in a Christian house. I prayed, I did all those things. So my first suggestion is, if you need to bind or rebuke an evil spirit, I would say, in the name of Jesus, I rebuke you and I bind you, and throw the blood of Jesus on it, because that is the only thing that they're going to respond to at that point. When I have a person who's maybe has become an enemy, right? They might be working against me. They might be throwing evil eye on me, or trying to manipulate a situation, right? You've got someone who's become problematic, or they're kind of like wishing you harm, or you're afraid that they're a threat, that they're threatening you in some way. I like to remember this song that we sang in church growing up, and I'm pretty sure it's probably from the Psalms. But it says, no weapon formed against me shall prosper. All those who rise up against me shall fall. I will not fear what the devil may bring me. I am a servant of God. And I say that over and over and over again, and that really fortifies me and helps me. I pray and I give it over to the Creator, and I say those prayers, and I don't leave it once. I mean, those are my ongoing prayer requests for, that kind of protection, and to help resolve that issue, to help me forgive that person, and to take on your side of the street's responsibility, right? Because there's two people sucked into this karmic situation playing out. And so there's some reason that person is there in this situation with you. So I would say not only pray for the resolution of the situation, but pray to understand what it is in this situation that you need to change in yourself that will help you merit the situation being resolved. Another protective practice that you can do is praying at midnight and in the late night hours, because we're more exposed to the darkness and we're more vulnerable at night, especially when we're asleep, because a greater part of our soul leaves our body and leaves us very vulnerable. And our soul is very protective. There's like this protective light around us. So if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're like, why am I awake? I want to go back to sleep. Use that opportunity to pray, even if you don't know for who or what for. And you might have like an instinct about that come up, and whatever is the first thing that comes to mind. I just remember to have my chili like warming up on low. I hope it doesn't singe to the bottom of the pot. So another thing that you can do is when you're alone, you're more vulnerable. So to be in 2s and 3s or more is always helpful, especially when you're walking at night, because when we are exposed to physical darkness, we're literally also exposed to like the darkness too. So if you can be in groups, that helps. Also, when you speak about the Creator out loud and you speak about the goodness of the Creator, that puts protection around you. And as well as I started using sage to sage my house. There is talk in the Old Testament about, like, according to the law of Moses, doing certain burnt offerings using hyssop, which is a sage varietal, or hyssop. And so that does have biblical context. But so I'll get a sage bundle and I will sage my house I'll try to do that regularly. I burn different incenses regularly as well, but the sage particularly is an exorcism tool. I will, I've used my own, holy water to anoint my house, and I pray around my house, but I think that the saging really helps, and you're going to need to open the windows and the doors to let the smoke out so the demons aren't just, clawing at the walls. And then I also I surround my bed with, and I put pillows, or I put crystals under my pillow, and I have crystals and things on my nightstand, smoky quartz, pyrite, black moonstone, white moonstone, ocean jasper. There's some different things that help you have soothing dreams, but that literally protect you. So the smoky quartz for sure. I like the dark moonstone, and the pyrite helps ward off nightmares. Can help. So yes, and then I definitely sage around my bedroom. And then people talk about putting lemons under your bed to absorb negative energy, but I think keeping that negative energy out of the house, keeping your house clean, thinking about cleaning the negativity and cleaning the atmosphere, adding that to your chores. And that decluttering your house, cleaning your house, if you're in a cluttered, dirty house, that attracts dark energy. Okay. Well, if I think of anything that I didn't just mention, I will add that to the list, but I will comment back to you and let you know that you can find these answers in tonight's video in case you're not already watching. All right, y'all. I hope that you have a really wonderful week. We have embrace, we have expand, we have heart activation, heart opening, which will help increase our creativity and our creative flow. And we have worship. So all in all, I think this is going to feel like hopefully a much lighter week than we've had recently. Even if it's just a temporary reprieve in between existential dilemmas. Join me again on our next video for our anchor message, where we will be getting our spiritual assignments for the week. Until then, peace be with you. Ciao.